I'm working on some fun videos about Halloween. These are deep dives into the history of fear through Halloween costumes and decorations. All this research resulted in a new question for today. Are we on the verge of a new paradigm? The face of fear has changed a lot over the past 100 years. We started with scary movies, like the first Dracula movie in the early 1930s, where he's like all evil. And then it ended with the harmless, sparkling vampires of Twilight, where our young heroine desires nothing more than to join her fanged friends. This is the nature of a Pluto cycle. Take one set of ideas that everyone seems to agree on, and then, generation by generation, each one examines some part of it. They defang the fear and learn something new. And then it becomes time for the next thing. The Pluto cycle is going to reset in about 40 years. So this is well within the lifetime of most of us. The biggest changes are going to come right now as Pluto starts through Aquarius and then through Pisces. This is starting now. The last two cycles were focused on the material world. The Renaissance brought the Enlightenment, which was the dawn of the age of science and rationalism. If something cannot be measured, we can ignore it. So is this approach as passé as vampires? We have looked at every aspect and learned a lot. The exploration of the material world, ultimately, it became a search for power. Power can be felt. It can move anything in the material world, including humans and plants. It makes our cars go and heats our homes, yet power is intangible. Force is intangible. Starting with Star Wars came the idea of use the Force. There's a way that humans can interact with unseen worlds. AI is an attempt to create an unseen force that will handle the ethereal information. AI is a useful tool. But there are those who seek power who I've heard explaining that they are far more interested in influencing how people think with it instead of using it as a tool. Often science fiction writers capture what is to come faster than the oligarchs. And my exploration of fears, fiction, and costumes shows some interesting patterns emerging. Harry Potter is the story of wizards, otherwise normal people who can learn to manipulate the physical world through magic, which is an unseen force. Star Wars introduced a version of this same sort of thing with the Jedi. And then more modern shows, like Stranger Things, start to define how people can venture into unseen worlds that are similar but have different rules about physical reality. And there are many, many books, mostly fiction, but also there are some going back to the time of Theosophy, Rudolf Steiner, or Edgar Cayce, that view this as nonfiction. Even on my channel, I shared a book about my great-grandmother, explaining her experiences with these unseen worlds, and her experiences with healing people in seemingly miraculous ways, like blindness 5 different times, and normal maladies like broken bones. She tells of it as though this is a perfectly normal thing for people to do. And my mother and grandmother saw this all firsthand. This kind of work has been labeled as mystical to differentiate from the modern scientific worldview. The surprising thing is that these works are gaining audiences as people are starting to see that something different is coming that is beyond what we loved in science fiction. Even Star Trek in the 1960s had shows exploring alternate life forms. Okay, I'm working through a thought here, so I'm kind of meandering around a bit. But this is not a theory that I have or anything that I know. It's just something I'm thinking about. Astrology looks at the unseen, intangible forces in nature and how they affect us. Through the last Pluto cycle, there were many spiritualists and mystics who were exploring these thoughts quietly. They were often ostracized for it, treated almost as badly as the early scientists of the Enlightenment who were imprisoned or killed for discussing ideas that are now foundational to our modern world. During the last 14 years, Neptune was in Pisces, which opened up how people are thinking. Postmodernist theories claim that nothing is real, only a construct of how we think. We live in a material world, but what if there is more to discover? As a culture, we are thinking differently about so many things. People were once laughed at for exploring if UFOs are real. These researchers have moved on to discussions of consciousness and re-examining older theories of reality that were once rejected in order to build today's consensus. Some of these people are named Boscovich, Schauberger, Wallace Thornhill, Walter Russell, and there's a huge list of people that were just pushed aside, but they had equally good ideas until that happened. Look at how fiction has changed over the last 14 years, when Neptune was in Pisces. Look at how many videos there are questioning the foundations of what is considered right thinking by those in charge. Neptune opened the door to these new ideas when it passed through Pisces, starting in 2011 and continues through this year. In 20 years, Pluto is going to walk through that same door into Pisces, and Pluto makes big changes. With Pluto currently in Aquarius, humanity is tasked with sorting out what needs to change, what new ways of thinking are possible to make it happen. And then in 2044, in your lifetime, these paradigms will shift. It's actually no wonder that Gen Z is not really motivated to blend into the old paradigms. Over the last 2 Pluto cycles, we've explored intently the material world. And we have also overexplored the world of zombies, vampires, and werewolves to the point of boredom. Will something new come from the Pluto and Pisces era? Something far more interesting. In fiction, we used to have brave heroes who fought the darkness with swords. And then in science fiction, we faced our fears using technology. Today's fiction includes new ideas about things like magic, of psychic phenomenon, or the Force. The newest concepts are fascinating investigations of unseen intelligences and how we might learn to interact with them. So, what in today's fictional universes actually intrigue you? What could become a part of our reality? Think of how Benjamin Franklin's party tricks with electricity 250 years ago evolved into the modern foundation of our world. Anyway, this is my thought for today. By the time Pluto gets to Pisces, will our views of what humans are capable of change? We dismantled the fears of monsters, and we have dug into the material world, only to find forces and vibrations inside atoms rather than particles. We have exploited science to the point where we can destroy all life on Earth, or even destroy the planet itself so it looks like Mars. Is this our future? Or will something that seems impossible be taken seriously when Pluto moves into Pisces?